Hello. Okay, good. The camera is working. The volume seems to be working. Microphone. And here we are. So today I was just going to, as I get myself comfy, hopefully, just go through some of the books that I had used to put together my bulletin board and my career and confidence board. Not sure if people have seen that video, so I figured I'd just do a quick go through on that and then talk about some of the books that will be coming up in future videos, as well as some of the things that I'm currently reading. So, first of all, and I know I've talked about these before, I have The Four Purposes of Life by Dan Millman, and I've also read his book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Hey, JP, hope you're well. Thank you for joining me. I enjoy Dan Millman's work, and I have another of his books that's based on numerology and our life lessons in this life, as well as the path for this life. So I enjoyed The Four Purposes, and I used that as part of my bulletin board to keep me on track and inspired to remember there are differences between a career and calling to stay on track with your life path. I've also talked before about The Four Agreements, and this is by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book I enjoyed, and I actually ended up repurchasing it because years ago I thought I had what I needed from it, and then it turns out I actually wanted to get it again. It's an excellent reminder about being very careful about the words you use, about not taking things personally, and again, focusing on our life path and our purpose. So, both of those books were very handy in terms of coming up with ideas for what I wanted to put on my bulletin board. And that one, and I showed it in the video, and it sits to the left of my writing area, which is the room through this wall. But I decided for that board, that's okay. Sorry to decide which was the book with the Poltergeist and the Paranormal, as well as How to Hunt Ghosts. Both of those had the same definition about the poltergeist, JP. Most of them, even one of the other books by the parapsychologist, one of them ended up just saying, again, that noisy spirit, which is what a lot of people seem to assume it is. The Poltergeist and Paranormal, and that's an excerpt from a larger volume that was produced. And I can see it right across the room. What's the bigger title? I think it was Encyclopedia. I'll try and remember to put the name of the book that's an excerpt from in the description or the comments down below after the live, JP. But yeah, those were the two books. Poltergeist and the Paranormal. That definition's from 1992, I think. And then How to Hunt Ghosts is a newer book and I can't quite remember. That was by Joshua P. Warren. And yeah, I'll put those below, JP. And actually, that reminds me, because we sidetrack and go along. I was actually thinking about your question last week when I went through my stack of books that I'm currently reading, and you had asked, how do I keep track? And this is like my processing thing. So initially, when I read it, I thought you meant, how do I keep track of when I start a book and then I'm finished reading them? As I thought about it afterwards, I thought maybe you were asking, how do I keep track of the information in them? Is that right? You were asking, how do I keep all this together? Okay. So, because like I say, I thought about it afterwards, and for me, that's why sometimes I'm kind of quiet if I'm in person with people because I'm processing the different information. How do I keep track? I don't really have an answer. I just seem to know when I pick up the books. Sometimes I'll have to flip back a few pages to figure out where I've left off. I've just I don't know if it's because I went to high school back in the 1970s and we had to do more subjects in a day. So we had 8 subjects covering from September. Here, school runs from September to June. So I think part of that, at least for me, was the training. You had to keep those 8 subjects kind of straight in your head to pass your exams and do your assignments. So I think I just got in the habit of keeping track and juggling a number of things at one time. Then that went into, because I have so many different interests and I enjoy, I find I pick up a book when I need to read it or when it's of interest to me or I need some information. So I've always had at least 5 to 10 different books on the go at any given time. And I just happen to know what that particular book is about when I pick it up. And it was also a benefit because as an educational assistant, when I worked in resource rooms or behavior rooms, I had to know a whole lot about the different subjects in order to support the students I was working with. It doesn't mean that I was an expert in all of them. I just really enjoyed being in a resource room and juggling all the different subjects. To me, that was one of my favorite assignments because every day was different. You never knew which subjects you were going to be dealing with from one class to the next. And although being in a class sometimes was great, especially if you had a wonderful teacher. Hi, Make Mine Everywhere. Welcome. We're just doing a chit chat about books and how I keep track of things. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that juggling, and it's just gone over to the way I read books. It's impossible for me to just have one book on the go at any given time. I have a minimum of 5. Some I pick up. So, for example, the Four Agreements. It's a nice, small, short read. So, something like this, I'll plow through front to back because I just want to find out what the information is. And a book like this is, how can I incorporate it into my everyday life? The cats. Tiki is laying over that away in a chair, curled up in a blanket. Panther's down at the end of the hall in his box. I mean, they've got ortho beds and everything, but right now the box is his hangout. And Xena is on the other side of this wall, which is my workspace and where I do the editing and such. She's passed out in one of her favorite chairs and snoozing away. So they're all kind of doing their thing. Through live chats, they all tend to, Mom's chatting. It's not as much fun as traveling through when I'm making a video. How's Mac doing? I'll have to catch up on that. Yeah, Panther does love his box lately, and it's funny. It'll probably be another couple of days, and then he'll be ending up either on, I have a, well, if you've seen some of the coffee table in my house, it's the cat table videos. And so above, they'll either lay on top, and underneath we have an ortho bed, and they'll lay under there as well. But they're funny. It varies. With Panther, it varies day by day. He'll either be on his ortho bed. If the furnace is on, he loves the heat. Like he's crazy for the heat. And we've caught him in the kitchen actually laying on the register when the furnace is on. And I'm thinking, I mean, it's a plastic register, but that's still got to be crazy hot on his little tummy. And our little Cedric, she used to do the same thing. They'll get right up to the registers and they love it. And yeah, so my little teak is just snoozing there. I don't know. Let's see if I can turn this around and you can, oh, yep, I've got my little Zen gnome on, and there's the little teakster passed out in her chair. very comfy little girl she is. Well, in our house, they're always comfy, and it looks like the sun it's a mix of, oh, now Tiki's looking up going, Mom, did you just put me on the camera? Oh my goodness. Yikes. Yeah, she's our cat now. She joined us when she was a kitten, and now happy to say she is our third cat. So she's getting to be a big girl, and she and her brother Panther have a great time playing. He's happy that she's bigger because, of course, he misses his brother Shadow and the rest of the family. But Xena is and always has been, our lazy girl. She's always loved watching all the other cats play. She enjoyed snuggling up with her mom, but she has never been uber active as long as we've had her. She used to play with Ghost when they were kittens and that type of thing, but she prefers to watch everybody else playing. So poor little Panther, when we lost Shadow, March will be, yeah, it's crazy. 2 years ago. It's been 3 years since Ghost and Cedric have left us. But so Panther's really missed out on playing and racing around the house. So now that Tiki's bigger, he's figured out it's safe to play a little rougher with her. So they'll roughhouse and carry on and run through the house. And Xena's like, oh, good, he's not going to keep trying to get me to play. They're such characters. But yeah, so JP, you were saying that maybe it's an inherent rather than a learned skill in terms of all the juggling. I'm not really sure. It's just one of those quirks that I have, I guess. I've just always really enjoyed it. And it's why I loved working in resource rooms, because for me, I find it easier to juggle and do a multitude of things I mean, there's times, especially when I'm making notes or focusing on my videos, I can focus on something But yeah, I just like a variety. And so some other books, um, trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some I grab them and I need to read them front to back right away, especially if I've just bought new books. And then some I'll start reading, and it isn't that I don't enjoy the author's style or the information, it's just suddenly something else has my attention and I need to read it. So I have a whole bunch of them on the go, and then sometimes within a week or so, I'll start finishing them off and I'll, finish a few in a bit. Schmutz. Oh, that's a cute name, JP. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, mine, they all had different. Well, my first um, was Cass, and he was a black and white. I haven't featured him yet, and he was before this time of cell phones, or I'd have tons of. I've got pictures of him, but I'd certainly have had a lot more. So I had Cass, and it's funny, he looks similar to Panther because he was black, but he had a white spot on his chest, a bit more pronounced than Panther's. He was actually named after the constellation Cassiopeia, and then I found out he was a boy, so it was shortened down to Cass. Oh, cool, Austrian. That's neat. Our next was Morgan, who my husband found behind our fence when they were trimming trees. And she was just 9 weeks old and fit in my hand. She was so tiny, and we had Wolf and Storm, our dogs. So in she came, and that was after Cass had passed. So Morgan was our next, and she was named after Morgan Le Fay, and she lived up to her name. She was quite the little character for sure. Then Cedric was our rescue. She adopted us. We found out that she had been abandoned sometime in the winter because I remembered seeing this cat, and then we'd seen her in the spring and summer. And she followed me around for a couple of days in August when I'd been doing yard work. Third day, she came up on the deck, and we decided we would bring her in. Um, and so we had her tested for feline leukemia because we had to be careful with Morgan inside. And at that point, we had to say goodbye to both Storm and Wolf. Took me a minute there. Not mind fart, I forgot. I'm just mind fart. So Morgan had been on her own, and then we brought in Cedric. They began bonding. We found out Cedric was pregnant. So for a while, we had 2 floors of house. Morgan lived upstairs, Cedric downstairs until the wee ones came. And we got to watch Cedric bring 5 little monkeys into the world. The funny thing is, at the vets, there were only 4 that showed up on the x-ray to let us know that she was pregnant. So we found homes for 3. We were always keeping Ghost, our little white and gray kitten. And then Xena, no one had come forward, so we decided it would be best to keep her. Best decision we ever made, because while Ghost and Xena were playing and being all kittenish, Cedric and Morgan had bonded, and then the kittens were fascinated with Morgan. So it all worked out for the best. We had the 4 of them for several years. We've had the feral colony outside, and then Shadow, because I've fed the ferals, I feed them up on the deck to try and keep them away from my bird feeders. And, we had 4 cats. I wasn't trying to bring any more in. I was really careful about that. And then Shadow decided he wanted human attention, and he was always more interested in hanging out with me than the food. And the other cats are kind of walking around like, hello, she's got the food, visit later. So we decided, especially being black, it was kind of risky with him coming up like that. So we decided we would bring him in. We had to wait because Cedric had just been diagnosed with multiple myeloma. So we had to be very careful with her because she had come home a few weeks before. She'd been in hospital for 4 days. That was a very challenging time, but thankfully she was responding to chemo, and within a month she was back to herself and playing and eating. So in her case, thankfully, she just had to have a little chemo pill every 2 weeks. And of course, she got, Reiki on demand because I do Reiki. So once we were sure that she was stable and okay, we decided we would bring Shadow in. We've been involved with trap, neuter, release because originally we had 18 cats in the area, and that's a whole other story. But anyway, so we got the 3 brothers because Shadow had 2 brothers outside, and with TNR, we were going to have them fixed, and then 2 of the boys would go back out. Shadow was going to come in here in our city, and we had them tested for feline leukemia because we didn't want to risk bringing Shadow in. And then suddenly we have a problem with our 4 girls. Unfortunately, their one brother tested positive for feline leukemia, and here that sadly means he was euthanized. So my husband and I were chatting about it, and I said, well, we can't bring one in and put the other brother out by himself, even though his family was still out there. His mom was out there, his aunts and his cousins, but the boys had always been together. So we brought the 2 of them in, and it took a while. That's Panther, who you've met in the videos, and it was a few weeks before I came up with his name. I mean, Shadow just made sense because he followed me everywhere. Panther decided after a few weeks, okay, maybe these humans aren't so bad. It was about 3 weeks before we could introduce them because the boys had some respiratory issues and some other things. So again, we had to be careful. So thankfully, the 2 of them came in together. So they had a room, and, we'd go in, spend time with them. The girls were still getting plenty of time. We brought Shadow up to do the introductions, as we had done with the kittens before with Morgan. So we brought Shadow up. The girls are all looking at the crate like, we know there's cats here, just let them out. So we let the boys come meet the girls, and we were lucky. We had 3 separate families because we had Morgan from one, then we had Cedric with her 2 girls. The other 3 kittens had moved to their home years before that. And then Shadow and Panther came in, and it was just one big happy family. We didn't have fights. We didn't have spats. I mean, they played and carried on, but they all just loved each other. It was the easiest transition ever, thank goodness. And then we were lucky for a number of years. We had our 6 kids indoors, and our kids, Cass was my only indoor-outdoor cat. All the rest have been completely indoors, and not just because of the ferals. They're comfy, they're safe. we have a lot of wildlife in that here. Even though I live in the city, we have coyotes around us, so there's no way I'm letting my kids outside. And then sadly, Ghost passed after her battle a year and a bit with breast cancer and a few surgeries. Cedric passed a few months later. She had been 40 months cancer free, which we were blessed because originally they said she'd have 8 months, even with chemo, if we were lucky. Well, we were more than lucky because we had 40 precious months with her and she had full quality of life. We'd had a scare in February 2020 with 4 of them, and we still don't know what happened, but they were at the vets. 3 of them had to be on intravenous for 3 days. Shadow had had some problems with his stomach. Panther, thank goodness, was the only one who was fine. And then August of 2020, we had to say goodbye to Ghost. She had begun to lose the use of her back legs. Cedric had gone downhill a bit. It could have been between losing Morgan in 2019 and then her own battle with cancer and losing her daughter. So we said goodbye to her in November of 2020. And then in December, 2020, Xena was diagnosed with diabetes because, that's just the way the universe does it with us. Because we'd found out about Ghost's breast cancer the month after we had to say goodbye to Morgan, who had been with us for 14 years. So the universe just likes to keep up in the ante a bit there. So we got Xena stabilized with her insulin, everything else. Then March hit and the universe took Shadow from us. We found out that we thought he had some stomach troubles. And thank you, Make Mine Everywhere. Yeah, it was the universe and I. Yeah, see, now I'm gonna get teary. But I made it through most of the story, so I'm gonna keep going. The universe and I were in a very bad place that March 2021. We thought Shadow had stomach troubles. They tested him. He was anemic. Turns out he had feline leukemia. So then we went through the panic of, did Panther and Xena also have it? How in crikey did this suddenly become active? He'd never been outside. The universe decided not to be a total asshole. And thankfully, Xena and Panther did not have feline leukemia. And we had to say goodbye to Shadow. He was in crisis. There was nothing we could have done anymore for him. So yeah, it was just bizarre. So we lost 3 in 8 months. The universe thankfully has given us a break since then, and we still have Xena and Panther, thank goodness. Xena's been stable with her diabetes ever since. Panther continues to do well, and he is now the last of his family. I had a chance to meet their dad, and he wasn't part of the feral colony. He belonged to someone else and then sadly just disappeared. Their mom stayed around for quite a while, and then she was quite sick a few years ago, but I couldn't get her to the vets. And then Sweet Pea, who I just had in the video today and who I've done a memorial to last December. She was born the year after Shadow and Panther, but had no interest in coming indoors. Believe me, I tried. And then we found out, so Sweet Pea did eventually come in last December, so 2022. And it was weird because, I mean, she used to come up and cuddle, and she and the boy would hang out together and they'd sleep in my lap and all of that, but they had no interest in coming indoors. And then I think it was December 26th last year, I went out and she came up to me and she was in a panic and she was crying and shivering, and that just wasn't normally Sweet Pea, and so I bundled her up in my coat the day. I mean, it wasn't a pleasant day, it gets cold here, but it certainly wasn't as bad as some of the days she'd been out in, and, so I brought her into our back room, closed the door so she wasn't near Xena or Panther, and then we set up a crate there, and I kept the door to the yard open, and my husband and I had a long chat because Sweet Pea had never shown any interest in staying in. So we left her in the back room with the door open in case she just wanted to warm up and leave. I went back in 20 minutes later. She was still curled up in the crate. So we decided she definitely wanted to stay in. And then we had gotten her to the vets a little later that day. Sadly, we found out not only did she have a respiratory infection, she also tested positive for feline leukemia. She was definitely not doing well. So we kept her in a separate room, went and visited with her, spent time with her, and then had to sadly say goodbye to her because we're not people who can just sit by and do nothing. And as hard as it was, we've gone through this now 8, oh, probably more than that. Well, let's just say we've gone through it numerous times where we've had to say goodbye and it broke our hearts, but we've always had signs or known that it's what was best for the fur kids. So yeah, and then here we are now, and I made the video with Tiki's Forever Home. We've gone to PetSmart for years. That's where we buy our food. I tend to stay away from the adoption center. I don't go into pet stores because I'd bring them all home. And we happened to be shopping. I was like aisles away from the adoption center, and I could just hear this cat crying and crying. Excuse me, we were in the checkout line, and I just had to go see what was going on. There was Tiki in the window. We went in, we met her, and my husband mentioned, he really missed having more than 2 cats. So we talked about, how would Xena react? How would Panther react? Maybe it would be good for Panther having a little friend. And, well, as you know, Tiki came home with us. The funny thing is, as we were standing there talking about it, we could see Tiki on the other side of the glass, and she was meowing, and you couldn't hear her. So I have no idea how I heard a cat 3 aisles over when you couldn't even hear meowing as we were standing there. So I figured the universe was telling me it was time to bring somebody else home. And, yeah, that's, now the stories I didn't mention were Wolf and Storm, our 2 boys, our dogs. And they were equally funny because, again, I don't do pet stores. It's just not good. My husband hasn't won Lotto Max, and again, I just wanna bring them all home. So we happened to be out with friends for brunch. They went over to the pet store, I went to another store. My husband came to get me, And he's like, "You gotta come to the pet store." And I'm like, "I don't have to do anything." He's like, "No, no, come look." So I went over and they were in the front window, and here's this cute little puppy, and he's up against the glass looking at my husband, and he's like, "Look, he's so sweet," and blah, blah, blah. And we had Cass at the time, so anyhow, not with us, but, in our home. So I'm like, "Okay, go see how much this little puppy's gonna cost, and we'll figure it out from there." So because up until a few years ago, I was always working full-time as my husband. But anyhow, so he goes into the store to ask, and doesn't this little puppy go along with him and is standing up at the window watching him, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't gonna be good." So he comes back and he tells me, so I'm like, "Okay, let's go talk about this because we gotta think about, the food." We had Cass, taking him for walks, the responsibility because, dogs, you need to be there all the time. And we've never been big travelers, so that wasn't an issue either. So my husband's like, "Well, okay, like, we'll go home and we'll come back tomorrow. And if he's here, it's meant to be." And I'm like, "Oh, hell to the no. We're not doing that because if he's not there tomorrow, this is going to be brutal pouting." So Wolf came home with us. He was a full breed Pomeranian, and he was with us for 15 years. A few years later, yep, same pet store, we found Storm. And he ended up coming home with us because we thought, well, maybe Wolf will have a little friend to play with. And Storm was an Eskimo Spitz. So they were both smaller dogs with the curly tails. And yeah, so that's the story of our fur kids and their different names. So with Cass, that was the constellation. Wolf was named after his coat. He was because his coat was a wolf sable. He had all the colors of a Pomeranian, and he looked like a baby little wolf with his teddy bear ears. Storm was white, so that's what he was named for, a snowstorm. Morgan, I said, Morgan Le Fay. Cedric, well, that was my husband's fault because he named her when she was outside and we didn't know she was a girl. So when she came in, the name Cedric had stuck, and that's who she ended up. That's how she ended up with Cedric. Ghost was named for her white and gray color. And as the kittens were small, she would be, racing around the basement, and she looked like a little ghost, this little white streak running past you. Xena, because she fears nothing, was named after Xena, the warrior princess, even though I spell our Xena with a Z, and the warrior princess was with an X. Shadow, because he followed me around. Panther, because he looks like a little panther. And Tiki, I don't know, the name Tiki just kind of made sense, and she likes it and responded to it from day one. So yeah, that's the story of all our fur kids. And I'm just going to catch up on some of the comments now. See, with the names, I don't know. And I mean, I name even the hawks and some of the others outside. And I think because I'm into reading about mythology and different things, I just come up with those names. A friend of mine has human names for all her pets. So she has like Alex and Emma and names like that. So and I mean, if they're happy with it, that's what matters, I think, anyway. Yeah, flower names. True. Aw, thanks. I don't know if it's dedication or I just Yeah, I'm just a sucker when it comes to animals, and I can't read books or watch movies where something happens um to animals. And it was years ago I saw it on Facebook, and I can't I can't remember exactly how they said it now, but it's basically it doesn't matter how many humans die as long as the dog makes it. Or in my case, the dog or the cat. Yeah, and now I'm very careful about what shows or movies I watch. If it involves animals, then I'm out. I mean, as a kid, I remember Old Yeller. That book and movie just broke my heart. Um, and yeah, I remember Wonderful World of Disney when it was family oriented. And there were times I never got to watch the end of the show because of something happened to an animal. Let's just say my language got really colorful, and well, I was in my room for the rest of the night. So I don't know how some of those movies ever ended. But yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree, JP, in terms of cancer. I mean, we had both Cedric and Ghost with cancer, and they think that Morgan possibly may have had it as well, which was crazy. My boy before them, Cass, and I had him for 14 years as well, but he had kidney, same as Wolf. Why can't I think of the other now? Not kidney infection, but their kidneys as they were getting older. And Wolf was with us for 15 years. Sadly, Storm only 9. He had issues with his heart. Um, yeah, that's the other. And with one of the assistants at our vets, we joke. It's like, and because she's commented too about all our kids and the different issues they come with. I mean, my rescues have all been not kidney failure. Um, I know it's, mm, I'll think of it probably after the live stream is done, but I know it had to do with kidneys as they were getting older. I don't know if it wasn't so much that they were shutting down, but I know it involved their kidneys. And then suddenly, like I say, with the girls who ended up, 3 of them now with cancer. And yeah, it is concerning that, that's increasing. And I don't know whether they're better at diagnosing or whether there's an increase. Feline leukemia is brutal, especially sadly with the ferals, because at least here, I mean, they do the trap neuter release, but they don't test them for feline leukemia. So sadly, um, if they're not tested and they put them back out in the colony, then that ends up spreading. So yeah, it's a challenge for sure. Oh, yeah, Tiki did call my name. You're right. Cats choose their servants. Oh, so true. That's right. Dogs have owners, cats have servants. And I mean, we joked about that too, of how well, Morgan will never know what happened, but she was just a little kitten. So we don't know how she ended up behind our back fence. We know Cedric was a house cat that some human garbage had left. And like I say, we didn't know until later she had been left out in the winter, because once she came in, I'm like, I'm sure this is the cat that I had seen. And we had a number of other ferals out there at the time. So, I mean, this poor girl had managed to survive through the winter and everything else. She definitely had her street creds for sure. And yeah, and then, well, Ghost and Xena were born in our basement, so they have zero street creds. Panther and Shadow were outside. They were, I think, 4 months old when we brought them in. And then Tiki, we will never know her story because she came from a shelter. But yeah, the universe keeps sending us these kids, and I mean, I'm grateful for every day that we have them and that we have them. It'd be nice if the universe would send us the lottery, and then, we could do even more. I'm definitely a softie, that's for sure, when it comes to animals and people. I'm just more selective with people. Um, I think the not testing for leukemia is cost, sadly, because the city pays for it. When we took the boys in, we paid for the leukemia testing because we were bringing them in. The city will pay for the spade or neutering, but they don't pay for the leukemia testing. And to me, again, this is one of those, you know what? They could make the cost reasonable. And yeah, I've had that conversation with a few people, and it's a bugaboo. Eric and Emmy. Oh, that's awesome. See, it must be a British thing with the names, JP, because my friend who calls all her pets animal names is actually from England. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, mine, I don't know. Either like Tiki gave me her name, Panther gave me his name. And the others I kind of, well, Ghost, because she was that little white streak. Um, is where she got her name. So, yeah. And then Wolf with his coat. So, yeah, we definitely off on a tangent there with the pets. But thanks for listening and letting me be able to share the story about them. It's been a while, and I'm glad that I can share the pictures. Hey, Kevin, that's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to get through it. It's even though it's been a few years. And I mean, everywhere I look in my house, because, our kids were, we've been in the same house. Our kids all grew up and left from here. And every room has a memory, either of sitting on the chair with them or them sleeping or roughhousing or any number of things. And yeah, to me, they mean a lot because they're always here. They give so much and ask for so little in return. And I'm grateful that we have them. Thanks. Yeah, our kids, I mean, even, and I grew up on a farm. So I had a German Shepherd growing up. Animals have always been huge for me. You always know where you stand with them. They don't have hidden agendas. And like I say, they ask for so little and give so much. I mean, I would have been lost without the kids. And, even during my back injury, I mean, we had Cedric and Morgan and the kittens, and they were a huge support system and help through all of that. I've always found that I could rely on animals, and it's also my connection with nature, just being able to be outside looking at the plants or the birds. I mean, we've got the feral colony now, but before the feral colony, we had bunnies, chipmunks, and we still had the skunks then, we have raccoons. So it's kind of interesting for someone who lives in the city, there's this ton of life around us, insect and birds. And yeah, it keeps me grounded because, even if it's a day that it's a bit too difficult or I can't go out for long, I always get out to feed the cats. But if I can't stay out because it's too bitter cold or damp, then I can at least, look out the window and enjoy them. And with the cats outside, my husband built 2 shelters, 2 floor they're both 2 floors high, he insulated them, and I fill them with straw. So even the feral cats outside are spoiled like the indoor cats. And, yeah, so that's kind of the first story. Exactly. It's unconditional, and that's why I appreciate them. I mean, there are some amazing humans, and I never take them for granted either. I always appreciate that. But, animals definitely have, as a kid, they got me through a lot of things, and as an adult. Yeah, it is definitely for love. Those cuddles and the treats and the combs and the play and all of it. They're just amazing. Like I just cannot imagine not having some critters in the house. It just yeah, it would to me it would be totally weird. But I mean again, it it's like having kids. I don't have human kids. Other people are more suited to that. I'm suited to having fur kids. So I think it's important to know which one or if both work for you. But I'm definitely a fur baby mom. I don't have it now. I'll use it one of these weeks, but I have a cup that says my kids all have paws, which is so true. But yeah, so that was kind of that. And yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I'll have to find a way to put my cats up on my boards. Maybe that's what I'll put in some of that career and confidence board, or find some pictures or pictures to color of cats and put them up there as well. Because yeah, they're definitely important. Actually, no. And I do remember the experience you shared with Scrap. I haven't had anything like that in terms of seeing them after. Um, Trying to think with Cass. I know we found uh some of his fur years later, one of his whiskers, and I know it was one of his because Cass had this bizarre thing of half of his fur was white and half of it was black. But when you looked at him, he was black. And it's funny, someone even asked me if I dyed my cat, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Who would do that?" So I know that when I found it, it had belonged to Cass. And it's not that I'm a horrible house cleaner. It's just it was bizarre to find that. And it was a time when I was really missing him and just needed some kind of confirmation that he was okay or at peace. When we said goodbye to Morgan, um, we had been we were on our way home. It was a cold, icky day. It was February the 15th. Um, and we were driving home, and, of course, our hearts were broken. And as we were driving, I was thinking of Wolf and Storm, who Morgan had grown up with and loved, and they loved her. And I was thinking of them meeting her. And just as I had that thought, the clouds parted and the sun shone through for just a few moments. And it was like the universe was letting me know that, yeah, she was at peace and with her brothers, and they were all having a good time together. Now, when I do Reiki, sometimes I will notice they're with me, um, if that makes sense. Because part of Reiki is, of course, you're connecting with the universal energy for healing. And yeah, sometimes I feel them beside me and helping me when I'm doing that, whether I'm doing Reiki for myself or my family. And like I say, I've done it for our kids. I've done it for the feral cats. So when the boy a number of years ago had injured his paw, I used to do distance Reiki for him. And then it was kind of cool because he would also come and curl up in my lap, and I'd put my hands down and he'd snuggle in so that my hands were in a good position to send Reiki to his paw. And thank goodness, within a month, he was fine. His paw healed perfectly, no issues, no problems. And it was astounding because he certainly didn't get to the vets or anything like that. And I'm so grateful that it healed well and that he would come and sit in my lap and allow me to do Reiki for him. So that was neat. And those, I guess, um, yeah, are the closest experiences that I have with that. They basically come when I'm doing energy work. Not all the time, and so I guess maybe it's if I need a boost or if I'm just really missing them as I'm doing it. That's kind of where that connection comes up with. But yeah, so and actually, maybe that's I'll move on because it is about happiness as well. And that's the next video that I have. I'm just wiggling around here, coming up. So the next book I'll be talking about is A Guide to Happiness. And this also has audio meditations. She has, can't think of the name of them, those little quick scan boxes where you can check in with the audio and hear her do the meditation. Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess JP, it depends on how you think of it. And I think that's the important part is people need to decide for themselves what fits and what makes sense. For some, it has to be that. Yeah, see, I don't want to say has to. For some people, the religion is how the belief comes to be, whether that's a human spirit or an animal spirit or reincarnation. For other people, it's more scientific than belief. Does that make sense? So that they have a spiritual path because there's a difference between religion. Well, here's how I look at it, and other people may look at it different. You have religion, which has its written work and its rules and its hierarchy, whether that's priests or imam and others. So religion is very structured. Spirituality, and again, this is just my idea, spirituality is a belief in whether you want to call it God, a creative force, the divine, the universe. There is some source there that not manipulates, but oversees everything. And being spiritual is living your everyday life. So it isn't that there's a written thing to follow. It's not the same kind of guidelines and structure that a religion would have, but it's still about faith and belief and how you choose to live your life and how you choose to interact with humanity, right? So it's about the common good and living your belief system, but it doesn't require a hierarchy, I guess. And then you have science, which is guesses about how everything works. Because again, even with science, things change. And as I've been kind of going around that Da Vinci spiral when I was reading a number of different books about the Templars and the Cathars and the Masons and the Nephilim and so many other groups, and the number of times that I've come across things where this is what they thought in that time period, but then because of other discoveries and things, they've learned that it's different. So even science isn't 100% guaranteed. It always changes by new information and new discoveries for those who are open to it. Okay, good. It made sense. Yay. There you go. And I mean, and that's it. And for me, to each their own. Um, I'm not, I don't expect or want anyone to follow the path that I follow. And I don't actually have a name for my path anymore. There were times than I did. And now it's just me going through life, and I call it a spiritual path because I believe in a creative source. I refer to it as the divine, um, but I don't follow any one set path. And it works for me and for other people, and I mean, if it works for them, it's great. Like, for some people, religion is important because not only does it give them a belief system, sorry, still got that dry throat thing. It gives them a belief system, but it also gets them in contact with other people. So there's that support system and other people to talk to and share with. And I think that's important for myself because I tend to be more of a loner. Take care, mate. Going everywhere, and thanks so much about the sharing. I'm glad that you got to pop by. See you soon, and I'll definitely be checking in on the Mac videos. Take care, hun. But yeah, I think people need to find what works for them. Um, and I just wish that it didn't mean wars or issues going on. I don't understand why people can't just let people be and follow a spiritual path. And it's part of why I kind of stopped with some of the Da Vinci Code books, because I was just getting so frustrated with all these wars and killing each other and my way or the highway. And it's sad. It's just sad. I don't understand why people have to be like that. And I don't think it's the deities, whichever name you decide to pick. I think, and again, this is my opinion, it's the way humans twist and turn things that has resulted in so much bloodshed over a belief system. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating, but I'm glad at least it made sense the way I explained it. And yeah, so the guide to happiness, I was actually going to upload the video on this today, but I ended up doing the cat video instead because when I played back the video, which I always do before I upload them just to make sure there's no glitches and it sounds okay, for some reason, every once in a while, it kept freezing. And I'm like, okay, I can't upload this. I mean, sure, I could put in the thing. Sorry, there's a glitch. I can't figure it out. So I'm going to have to find out. I may have to end up taping it again if I can't work out what that weirdo glitch is. But at least now from playing around with things, I figured out how to move the audio and the visual apart. So maybe I can work it out that way. But it's a great book and it goes through different steps. And I love coloring. And there's pages in this book. I'm going to have to find one. Oh, so pages like this, where you could just have fun, color it in, and personalize it. So I'll talk more about that in the upcoming video. And the book that I connected with that in the video is The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. And it's a great read. And again, it isn't that we're not happy or don't have happiness in our life. It's just a way to make us more mindful and getting some ideas and suggestions for how to bring more happiness into our life or be more mindful or aware of it. So those are two books that, like I say, if I can get that glitch figured out in my video, that will be up next week. So I'm not going to talk too much about either of them. The other book, and I love this book, it's one of, well, it's my most unique book. Saying it's my favorite would be hard because I have so many books I enjoy. But if you notice on this book, and it's called The Oculatum, but you can read it this way or this way. And you notice the authors on both sides. And if you open it up, you can read it that way. And if you turn it over, you can read it that way. This book is an absolute hoot. And you decide which is the front and which is the back and which way you're going to read it. And it's used as a guide when maybe you're just kind of stuck or having some challenges. There's a set of instructions that you can use, and you do it for 6 days. And after those 6 days, you should have some mental clarity. And I know when I tried it last year, it actually worked. So I'll definitely be giving it another try. Basically, what this author did, and if I remember correctly, so CJP, I do sort of remember the ideas, but then I have to go back for the specifics because I get so many things on the go. If I remember correctly, this author actually was either putting together a book about bricks or old buildings, and then he came across this information where in houses they found all these different sayings. And initially, these sayings were passed through an oral tradition. And then someone decided to get them all collected and put them together. But they were never meant to be, or they were never used as in a book format. You kind of picked what saying you needed on that particular day. So this book you could do different ways, really. You could follow the 6-day instruction that the author suggests. It also talks about just because you don't understand it when you first read it, and throughout the day you do the saying again. So I just opened up here. Better to light a lamp than stumble in the dark. I mean, there's a lot of ways to interpret that. And if you're pulling it at a time where maybe you're having some difficulties or some challenges, then that can imply, you need to light a map or light a map. Hi, vey. Light a lamp. In other words, look for the light. Maybe there's someone there who has information that you need. So better to light a lamp than stumble in the dark. You could take that to mean instead of trying to do it on your own, find somebody who can help you. Find a source of light, whether that's another person, information, or a different activity. So it's a book that I've really enjoyed. And I actually have, this video I also have done. I just need to finish editing it. And in that, I also included E Squared and E Cubed by Pam Grout, as they're both very helpful when you're running into difficult times or trying to make a decision. In terms of coloring, you're absolutely right, JP. And I have a number of different books. Excuse me. And I actually was going to talk about a couple of them today. So now's kind of a cool time to do it, because in the back, you have your little stick and the pictures themselves. And I know I have one started. I'll see if I can find it. I probably should have kept it marked off. I think I've gone too far. So it's got to be up around here. Not yet. Kind of figures at the moment, doesn't it? Did I actually start this on page 1? Here it is, page 2. So as you scratch off the areas, and so they've got the lines there, and then it comes up with the different colors. So the only thing about this is you don't really get to choose the colors. We do have paint by numbers on this side. So yeah, that's something different. And so to finish those pictures, all you need is the little stick. And I actually used to make, when I had reading groups in primary school, we actually did some of our own activities like this, because you get a piece of cardboard and you just put down a bunch of different colors with crayons. I'm going to try it with markers because I have some old cardboard around. Then you go over, of course, with a black crayon, and then you just scratch out. You could use a paper clip. Now I have the stick here, and then you can make all your own. Yeah, barbecue skewer would work as well. And then you could pick and choose your own designs. So that was a fun find, and I have a couple of books like that. And then this is just a different, so it's patterns and shapes. I've got 4 of these. I had to stop and think. And they come with CDs. So as you're coloring, you get relaxing music as well. And I like that on these, they come with a piece of cardboard at the back so that and there's no picture on the back. So when you're coloring something in, you don't have, if you're using markers, which I use markers and pencil crayons. But so if you're either outlining or coloring with your marker, then you don't have to worry about it going through and ruining the other picture. So yeah, there's definitely, I've got, along with the reading, some coloring to get through. But I love it because you're right. It gives you a break, gives you a chance to just chill out and relax. Oh, it is a barbecue. Gotcha. All right. Then see again. And well, it's a little thick on the end, I think, for that. Because ours here are just long, straight sticks. This one is a bit thicker on the end rather than just long and straight. But I guess you could use it for that too. Good point, JP. But yeah, so I was going to talk about that coloring. I've mentioned some of the things coming up. Then a couple of the others, and I need to finish here's Rituals for Self-Care, which I'll be talking about. This book I thought was neat because it had as I went through some of the pages, there's things I already do, so that was nice validation. But I really liked here on the front page, any ritual is an opportunity for transformation. And that quote is by Starhawk, who is definitely one of my favorite pagan authors. And when I was taking a religious studies course, it was her book, The Spiral Dance, that I first began reading and learning about different pagan faiths and all of that. And she's still around. She has a YouTube channel, and she's very active in terms of the environment. So I thought, now there is validation. This is a good book. And it goes through, there's some great tips and ideas. And when I do the video on it, I'll get into more specifics. But again, they're easy to do. They don't take hours. And it's a matter of just being mindful. So I found that last year. So I still need to get to reading that. Another book that I was going to we'll be talking about, because December, I really want to stay focused on self-care and happiness and staying joyful. And I mean, again, it's cloudy here. It was sunny for a little bit. So looking for things to stay in a good head place. This one is 21 Rituals to Change Your Life. The number 21 is important because they say it takes 21 days to change a habit. I also noticed when I picked this up, Teresa Cheung, and I have one of her other books as well. So I thought that was interesting. And I need to check on the title of it. It's one of the encyclopedias that I have, either about mythical creatures or about ghosts. I've got to double check. So this will be something I try next year, and I need to check whether the activities are every day. Yeah, there we go. Introduction, 21 days. So it could well be. She's got morning rituals, daytime rituals, and then evening rituals. All right, we'll have to check that out and see how long it takes me. That'll be one of my next reads for sure. Then, as happens so often, so JP, you know the list of books I went through last week. And I did mean to finish a couple of those from last week till now, except I got distracted by A Brief History of Vampires. And yep, discount table again. I've had this for a few years. Okay, I didn't put on the front of it because for a while, what I used to do is put on the front of them when I bought them so I knew how long I had them. I know this has been waiting for at least 3, if not more years than that. And this is by M.J. Trow. The interesting, and I just finished this. So here's another one. For example, I just started it on the 3rd of December and I finished it yesterday. So this one was, yep, got to keep reading, got to find out how this ends. Even though it's a nonfiction, it's not fiction. It's very detailed. He focuses a lot on Vlad Tepes. Well, I do the dog ear thing, unfortunately. But it focuses a lot on Vlad Tepes. And now I'm glad I didn't do that video yet on Dracula and Carmilla and the In Search of Dracula, because this book is published after. This book actually is, what year? This book is 2010. The In Search of book that I had was 1972. So quite a bit later. And this author actually makes reference back to the In Search of Dracula book. And some of his information is different from Florescu and McNally. And it doesn't sound like Romania redid Paneri. I'll have to double check. But I don't think they redid Dracula's castle, which is not Bran Castle. His is in a different direction. And it's interesting the different things that this author talks about. Now, although it's called A History of Vampires, like I say, it really focuses on Vlad, the time period he grew up in. He really delves into the history of not just Romania and Hungary and what was going on with the Ottoman Empire and the Turks at that time, but he also relates it to who else was around and what else was going on. So he talks about Leonardo da Vinci, who was around this time period as well. He talks about the War of Roses. So he really delves into history, not just of how did Vlad and Bram Stoker impact the whole concept of vampires, but sorry, JP. Yeah, maybe it is at Dingleberry's house, except he's taken them on the road now. I saw on his about page. It's too funny. But and the other is, this is definitely not a read for the faint of heart, because this author not only gets into what was happening during Vlad's time, some of the things that Vlad is accused of. He talks about the propaganda so that some of those atrocities didn't happen, and they didn't happen the way that they're described. Again, because keeping in mind what was going on during that time period. He talks about Elizabeth Bathory and how much of what's said about her is accurate or propaganda, everything going on politically at the time. And, different sources list her victims anywhere from 8 to, I think he said, up to 500. And that's the challenge of trying to figure out what was going on in that time period. Is records and things weren't kept like they are today. The other thing is, you have to remember a lot of this stuff was written by people who didn't necessarily respect either of these characters. So it doesn't mean that those atrocities didn't happen, or, things weren't bad. It just means they weren't accurately documented for history's sake. But he also gets into serial killers and a lot of other things that have had an impact. So it really isn't an easy read because, like I say, he gets into a lot of the atrocities that humans have committed against each other for different reasons. So it isn't just about vampires. And he also talks about some of the modern stuff now with people who think they're vampires and the clubs and that culture. So he really delves into a lot of different things. Much, yeah, exactly. And there's the other part, right? There's information in terms of Vlad. You had the Saxons, so Germans, one language. You've got documentation by the Russians, another language. Then you have the information from the Romanians. So all of that relies on someone interpreting it, and you have to hope that the interpretation they've provided is accurate and you know, is accurate. And then other people talk about that information in their own words. So, how accurately is some of this stuff being passed on down the road? It's like I say, if you're interested in Vlad or certainly the history of the Balkans and that area, Romania, Hungary, he definitely gets into it and puts things into context. So it's an interesting read from that point in terms of how Vlad and Count Dracula have impacted stories and the theater. He also talks about Carmilla, and his statement is that perhaps Sheridan Le Fanu may have based Carmilla on Elizabeth Bathory. So there's a lot of different tie-ins and connections, and it gives you context to some of the things that were happening. The interesting point that he makes is, back then, politics were very different than now. You didn't have nationalism so much. You still had separate little communities and areas and provinces. Whereas now it's, countries against countries type of thing versus, villages. And yet, some of the things these serial killers are doing and others are just as horrific as what was going on back then. Ah, there you go. Yep. And it did, and again, so it talks about that whole area, Serbia, Croatia. Uh-oh. Did I just move my mouse? I did. Um, Serbia, Croatia, Hungary, Austria, Germany, Italy. And he talks again about, the Turks and all of that movement. He's got some information about China, Greece, trying to think, what countries have I forgot? Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, which is no longer Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Austria, France, Spain. And he talks about the Inquisition in here as well. And I mean, and the plagues. So there were so many things going on that is contemporary with Vlad. And therein lies the challenge. And so as I get to pulling together the timeline and the information, that will stand out more because, you read about Da Vinci on one hand in those timelines, but then it doesn't always stand out that Da Vinci was alive when Vlad was alive, I think. I know Vlad's in the 1400s, and even that, they're not entirely sure when Vlad was born. They're pretty sure when Vlad died. But even with that, they don't know the exact situation that happened, whether it was he was betrayed and killed by some of his own people, whether he was killed because, unfortunately, sometimes he would dress as a Turk. And I mean, he grew up as a hostage of them for a number of years. So even when he returned to his homeland, sometimes he still dressed in those clothes. So there's assumptions that someone thought he was a Turk during this war and killed him thinking he was a Turk, because it's not like now where everybody's all over social media or you recognize a face. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. They don't even know where his body is entirely. Although there was one interesting part. Well, there were a lot of interesting parts, but it talks about instead of being buried up near the altar, because he was a prince, they figure he was buried at the back of a church where everyone was kind of walking over him. And that reminded me of one of the stories from Voices from the Vaults. So I've got to check back on that because that was another case of someone who was royal, but they were buried at the back of the church. So I'm wondering if that story also came from Vlad. There's so many different tie-ins. But now that I've finished this one, I need to get back to that list of books that I mentioned last week. So finishing off like Seth and the Empaths and a few of the others. I just need to get a little drink here. So yeah, we've gone through, let's see, we've gone through my fur kid history. So now you have the full story. We've gone through a few different books. We've had someone new join us this week, so that's kind of nice. We always get at least one new face with us. So yeah, we'll have to see where things keep going. And then next week I'll do the live on Saturday. So we'll see if we get a few other people popping in with us then. So yeah, I'm kind of not sure what else to chat about. We've kind of covered the different books, the bulletin boards, the creativity. Well, there's a good point, JP. And, it's true. If there were no mysteries, it would certainly be very dull. And that's like different things I've read as well. People are always saying about, sorry, I got itchy nose, about decreasing their stress or they wish they had no stress. But, it's really those challenges and things that keep us going. It's more not that you don't want any stress, it's the levels of stress that you have. So you want to minimize it somewhat, but you do want some challenges and things to strive for. And I think same with the mysteries. I mean, if everything was answered, then you're right, it would be boring. Like, what would be the challenge? Um, there would be a whole lot of people out of work, that's for sure, because look at all the people in science and the physicists and all the rest trying to come up with answers to different things. Um, I do wish, though, that in terms of the paranormal, that there was something more coming forward, and not so much. I don't know. I'm just lately with some of the well, I haven't been watching anything lately. I've been there's a channel called Be Amazed. So I've been watching that one, and it has to do with different things around the world. Last night I was watching about glaciers and icebergs calving, and it amazes me how close some of the boats get there. It's just crazy. Yeah, and I do agree. Like, stress is important, mysteries are important, purpose is important. Like, it does kind of boggle my mind, and I can only speak to here in Ontario, with the number of youth that have a zero interest or plan in a career. And some of them are on social benefits as of 18, 19. And I'm thinking, holy crikey, that's like a whole lifetime. What are you going to do with it? I mean, for myself, I still miss working. I would love to be back working at something. I just currently, right now, there's just different physical reasons that there's lots of jobs I see that I wouldn't mind taking. I just know I physically can't do them. And it frustrates me to no end that there's all these others who could. They just have no interest in working. And I grew up in a different time with different role models that, just spending your life without a job doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what gets you out of bed in the morning. It can't be social media and playing games all day long. I would think, well, but then I don't know. It's not something I grew up thinking, so maybe it doesn't bother them that much. I know there's days it still gets to me that, I'm not getting up or going to work, but it is what it is. For now, I'm still kind of playing around on YouTube, and this morning playing around, I learned a bit more on Canva. So there's videos that I want to redo from the first year that I started this that I want to clean up and fancy up a bit. And yeah, so that'll keep me busy for a while, and we'll see what 2024 brings. Ever since 2020, I just kind of take it one day at a time. I used to say, "Oh, next year will be better. Next year will be better." And I don't know, the world went topsy-turvy there for a while, but we'll see. I mean, things seem to be going okay. I do appreciate you being here, JP, because the live streams are quiet, but gives us a chance to sit and chat and cover different things. Uh, um, yeah, we're pretty much the same there, JP. Um, there's a few. Well, we'll have to see actually what happens with Ouija, and I did find an easier way to keep up with community posts when I go to the homepage on YouTube. Down the side, they have listed everyone you're subscribed to. So I just click on there. I noticed there's something going on with Steve and his health. So I'm not sure if they're going to have something this Sunday or not. And yeah, we'll see how things go. Um, and yeah, there are, yeah, and you know what? I very much appreciate it, JP, because trying to find folks like us is a bit of a challenge. So it's nice to know that there's at least one more person that gets me. I have a few here in my area, so that's nice. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, in terms of the channel, I hope it's going okay. I mean, I noticed and I posted. I seem to have a lot of returning viewers. The next challenge will just be getting them to comment under the videos. I know people are watching because those hours are going up. So the next thing is figuring out how to get people to comment, getting a few more viewers regularly, and then seeing if the live chats are going to take off. I mean, like I say, today, I don't know who else has a live chat going. I was kind of hoping we'd be able to see Dan today. Yesterday, he had a quick live chat, but he's still trying to get settled. And JP, you're funny. And yeah, I need to, because I've got I think couple of books. I know I've got one on Chinese astrology, and I need to double check that because, like I say, I know according to one book, I came up dragon, and then according to another book, I think I came up, I can't remember if it's rabbit next to dragon or not. They had two different years, and it might have been where in January I fall. I still think I'm dragon, whether it's on an astrological chart or not. There's just too many of them that come up too many ways that I'm not. But yeah, so I'll have to see. I mean, I think I'll stick with the live streams. I don't know if people are watching them back, and it's funny because I've noticed that people kind of pop in and pop out, so they're either not interested or, they're in the middle of something. Because I know at this time, well, it's 3:45 here, so for some people, they'd still be at work. Other people may be watching a different live stream right now, just kinda we'll wait and see how it goes, because I mean, the live stream is a whole new adventure for me. And I want to check because I think there's another option through YouTube that I could even like put up pictures, or I have a different background and different things, or at some point, maybe even have other people come on to do the chat with me. So if I run out of things to say or talk about, then somebody else can kind of chit chat for a while. And then we'll just have to see where it goes. Yeah, I think, I mean, the universe, I can't complain. It's been it's been a lot better than it had been back in 2021, that's for sure. And I mean, things are moving along. Do I wish I had a lot more subs by this point because it's been 2 years? Absolutely. But on the other hand, there are so many different things to be mindful of and aware of as a content creator. I mean, there's things to be mindful of as a viewer for sure. And, in terms of even checking out an about page for a channel before subscribing, and, is it the content that you're looking for? I've certainly in the last few months learned about giving someone a shout out, and then 2 months later going, "What was I thinking?" So, things like that. But even just in terms of all the changes that YouTube makes in terms of the language you can use, the content, being mindful and aware of copyright, and especially for myself, thinking in terms of books, like I'm very careful about how much I'll quote and read from it or what I show. I know there's a certain amount of content that you can share without violating any of that. So I try and stay within that guideline. I mean, ideally, and it's one of the things I'm thinking of down the road, I would love to be able to read an entire book or something like Voices from the Vault, be able to read read the stories completely. So I need to either connect with some authors or connect with some publishing houses and just go, "Hey, do you mind if?" And wow, wouldn't it be awesome if they paid me to do that and I could get a video, sponsored by them or a few. Well, that we have no idea, JP. There could well be a creator that does that. I mean, oh, what was I watching? I don't think it was Be Amazed. Yeah. See, the nice thing about this recent drama rama is I've been checking out some other channels. I found some great ones um, about ghost stories and things. Be Amazed, I've watched off and on because I love different things about the earth and nature and different discoveries. So, like I say, I was watching about the icebergs. I think they talk about ancient artifacts and things as well. And I'm trying to think, oh, I just had a mind fart there. No, dimensions. So it might have been about, because lately the Voyager things have been coming up, and there was something about dimensions and different universes and parallel universes. And I can't right now remember what that was about. May not have been on Be Amazed, but like I say, I found a few good channels that share ghost stories, share the history of different locations and things like that. So, in a way, some of this drama stuff did me a favor, and I've been looking into other channels and other content and other subjects. I mean, on one way, it makes me sad, but on the other hand, I mean, things happen for a reason. And, when I guess the time is right for the chat to get a bit busier or a little bit bigger, I'll be honest, I don't want it crazy tons, hundreds of viewers. And I mean, that's nothing against viewers, but I enjoy that I can babble, chit chat, cover a bunch of stuff, but I can also look over and keep up with the chat. I know when I've been in some that are way busier and you're just watching the chat go flowing by, honestly, I think that would bother me because I would keep losing track of my thought trying to read. And I always feel bad because, when I'm in other chats, people ask questions, they make comments, and then they just get scrolled past. So I always wonder, do those content creators ever actually go back and read all the comments that people have shared? Or do they ever get around to answering the questions that people have asked? Or is it just they upload the live and that's the end of that? Those questions, whatever, are just kind of there. And that's another thing I'll kind of have to figure out at some point. Not that I expect it's going to start flowing like crazy, but I have to figure out how to um, slow things down with the chat. I'm actually just gonna. No, no, see, there's something different. So yeah, I'll have to play around and figure things out. And thankfully, I mean, with it being slow and quiet, I don't have to worry about douchebags or trolls either. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. I mean, Dan was so sweet. He put it in his community posts a couple weeks in a row, and that was sweet of him. And I mean, he had popped by as well. Mark, well, I know his schedule is pretty crazy busy. I don't know if he would be up for doing a chat or not. And it's quite possible. With Dan, I'll wait till he gets settled because he just moved into his new place. The other thing I need to figure out is how to even do a chat with two people, because on the version that I'm using with YouTube right now, I'm pretty sure that I can't call somebody else into the chat. Yeah, because I think pop out dashboard. Okay, if I lose you, I apologize. I'm just curious what's. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. Just disappeared there for a while. That's sending feedback. I'm just scrolling along here to see what I have. That's to share it out. So nope, that's not it. Okay, so I'll have to check and see, because I looked into StreamYard and it wanted to have control of my channel, which is kind of creepy. Well, and I don't know. He may actually change his mind. I mean, it all depends, right? And I think it's going to depend on how the next few months go and if there's any more shenanigans. Because, of course, like I said, for some of these, and I think they're starting to figure it out, because I found a very interesting title yesterday about one asking and wanting people to be honest about their thoughts. And I may actually go back and check it out. I think some are starting to realize that if you're going to grow and move on Dramarama, you have to keep that going. It because if people have come to you for the drama, that's what they're going to stay for. And if you just suddenly chill out and there's no more drama, sorry, but you're either going to start losing subs, losing viewers, losing both, until you kick the can the next time and get the drama going, and it just becomes a cycle, unfortunately. So I think slow, steady, and staying true to yourself definitely makes a difference. And I think, like for Dan, at least, the one and done is a big part of why there really isn't drama. And I mean, he's always very clear. It's not personal. It's not debunking the paranormal. He's just commenting about the videos and then he moves on to somebody else. And that isn't, and I mean, I've looked at maybe 6, 7 different channels in the last month or so, and the thing is you keep seeing the same clips now because they're all doing the exact same video, but it's also the same channels over and over and over again. Well, there's a ton of paranormal channels out there, so why aren't all these other channels being featured? And I still haven't decided, and I may bring it up in terms of research and just keep some of the other stuff out, is the importance of reading an about page. Because again, a lot of these channels that the channels that I'm seeing debunked don't even claim to be paranormal. So how can you debunk something that already says it's for entertainment only or based on scary content? You're not debunking anything. To me, it's like watching a movie with someone who's going through taking the entire movie apart, and you're like, hello, this is supposed to be escape enjoyment, not let's analyze the whole movie kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But like I say, in the meantime, I'm kind of enjoying finding some other channels and other content at the moment. And I may check back with some different channels, but yeah, right now it's pretty much, well, Amy, I still enjoy her content. I haven't seen the 3-hour one she just put up yet. I may do that because I'm going to start knitting in a bit, so I can knit and have that going in the evening. Watched a few of Ghost on Trent. Once in a while, I check in with Three Spires. Dan will hopefully soon have some new content once he gets settled. And yeah, I pop into Purple now and again and a few others, but not very many. Like I say, at the moment, I'm kind of enjoying going back to ghost stories. Um, a bunch of stuff lately has just kind of turned me off. Not the paranormal field itself, but just some of the stuff. And maybe what I need to do is that hashtag paranormal and see what a bunch of the other channels are out there and see if there's some ghost telling channels out there. But again, I always want to be careful because I'm not into, well, one, I don't want stories that have anything to do with animals. As much as I love Stephen King, there are some of his stories that I don't. Tommy Knockers bothered me in that respect. I love Dean Koontz, but again, a lot of his have animals in it. And so I just try and stay away from that material. I think that's part of why I got so much into nonfiction is it's not something I have to worry about when I'm reading about, Templars or astronomy, that type of thing. Um, and then, yeah, there's a lot of other, but like creepypasta, I don't know. And I'm not even sure. I know I've heard the term. I remember the Goosebumps stories. I'm not sure if creepypasta is supposed to be something like that. I mean, I love a good ghost story. And there'd be another thing. If I could find someone to pay me or give me permission to read ghost stories, I would love to do that. I could set myself up downstairs by my electric fireplace and do that. Yeah, see, and there's a good idea, JP, and I am thinking about that. There's a lot of great ghost stories out there for sure. Um, and I could read stories and write my own or make up a story. I've been playing around a lot with Canva, and there's like some great spooky backgrounds and different effects that I could do. And I don't know. I mean, if I decide to stick with like a ghost story paranormal theme, I'm almost thinking it would have to be two separate channels because this one is kind of more the books and how they tie in with life, which can cover any subject. I mean, you have astronomy, so there's, a hobby, getting outside, getting to know the constellations. If it's astrology, learning about your own sign and, being mindful that some of the things are generic, but the more you know yourself, the more you recognize different things. I love talking about authors like Gretchen Rubin and Shakti Gawain and, you know, Louise Hay and so many of the other authors, Martha Beck, about, living a lifestyle, being creative, and how do we live our best life and a more joyful life. So I really do like the reviewing different books. How do we incorporate it into our daily life? How can that make us feel better about ourselves, the different activities and things that we do? And yeah, my glasses, I know because in order to read the chat, I have to use my reading glasses, which don't, so I keep, sorry if this looks weird, but I keep doing this so that you don't get the glare from the computer. The other glasses that I have that I do my videos with have that anti-glare, but they're for close-up reading. So I'd be sitting like, well, I guess I could do it, but that's a little too much space for me. I'd rather sit a little bit farther back unless I have an iPad. Maybe that's what I'll try next time. I have an iPad, so what I could do is have like my laptop set up this way, and then I could have my iPad sitting here so that I could read the comments on my iPad using my other glasses. See, there's so many different learning curves, right? Just even from the way the glasses look to what I have in the background and that type of thing. But yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a lot of things to figure out, and it's okay. It's all, ticking along and figure out, like I say, this whole having someone else in a chat and yeah, just keeping it to a smaller number. I mean, to me it's more personal and it's more, even though I can't hear you, so, unlike doing something on Zoom or I think it's called Microsoft Teams, where people could come in and chat. Oh, that would be cool. Well, you could either email me or Zoom or a Microsoft team. We'll have to figure something out there. 'Cause yeah, I mean, there's different things, and I'll have to see if that's kind of where I'm going to be heading. But I see that we're past 4 o'clock. See, somehow I was going to keep this short, and here we are, 2 hours later. I always manage to find something to chit chat about. And of course, with your help and comments and suggestions. So I think maybe we'll call it a wrap. Next week, we do this on Saturday at 2. So we'll see if we have a few more people join us. And yeah, this was good. So I definitely hope you have some lovely weather this weekend and have a very pleasant and enjoyable weekend. I'm going to see if I can figure out that glitch with my happiness video over the weekend, or I'll have to upload one of the other ones. But you've definitely given me some good food for thought, JP, and ideas for the live. So thank you so much for that. And I have to remember, ooh, well, you stay safe and dry. I think we're having, I don't know, and I'm just looking because my living room window's straight ahead. It's definitely gotten cloudy. I don't know if we're due for some rain or some snow. It's very weird. It's December the 8th, and we've barely had any snow. And that worries me because we really should have more snow by now. And the snow's also liquid and moisture for the animals. So, of course, right now, you have to take water outside because they don't have the snow to get it. I'll have to wait and see what the rest of this winter's going to be like. We're either going to get a major dumping after Christmas, or it could be very bizarre and mild again, which isn't good because then that doesn't get rid of the bugs and viruses and stuff either. 10 of one, 20 of the other. But anywho, well, have yourself an amazing weekend. Once I sign off, I'm going to grab that book and put it under the description for Poltergeist. See, I managed to remember that. So definitely take care of yourself. Give your kitties some snuggles and hellos for me. And we will no doubt connect in the comment section and definitely chat again soon. Do take care of yourself. And I'm going to do my little wave. I'm traveling. Oh, wow. Yeah, very crazy. Different temperatures for sure. See, I always get distracted. It's like being on the phone, right? Bye, bye. No, you hang up. You hang up. I know. I'm weird. Anyhow, thanks so much, JP. I definitely appreciate it. Take care.